There, we should do your intro again there.
Okay. All right. Let's try this again. I'm going to give it a second.
Do your intro again there.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you. Okay, perfect. We were just mouthing what we were going to actually do here, which, all right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Q&A for Pheasants. Thank you for being here on a Sunday evening. Hope everyone's doing well. Michael, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Hopefully you guys can hear me as well. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to the folks in the Q&A that have joined us. Thank you to, I'd like to introduce some of the cast and crew that's here with us. We've got Austin Wagner and Megan Hensley, who played Mary. They're both here. You guys will have to say hello or something so the camera will switch over to you.
Hello. We decided to talk at the same time. Hi, everyone.
All right, so how this is going to work is I have a slew of questions here, but anybody who's watching this chat, feel free to ask or comment anything. If you just want to say something congratulatory, feel free to do that. If you want to nitpick something, let's get down to brass tacks with Michael because I have some questions. But before we get into Pheasants, Michael, let's talk about who you are as a filmmaker and what brought you to this point. This was, as you told me, your first film outside of any contest you had done. So first, why movies? When did you start making movies, and how did you know you wanted to be a filmmaker?
To go all the way back, about when I was like 4 or 5, we used to put on little plays, as a lot of people do, with my cousins and my brother. And then I started doing. I torrented and downloaded Adobe Premiere when I was like 11.
Excuse me, sir.
Can you hear me?
You did what?
I stole it. I stole Adobe Premiere when I was like 11, and I started making like little Star Wars movies with my brother. And then after that, I was like, well, I guess that was fun. I never thought in a million years I would make money making videos and film. And now, fast forward, this is the abridged version, but fast forward many years later, and I own a little production company. I work in advertising mostly, and telling stories and doing short films and hopefully feature-length films at some point has been. It's one of those things that I've always, I don't know, my brain works that way. I think in films, and I love them more than many things in life. And it's almost as much a curse as it is a blessing. It's something that I can't get out of my head. But for this film, to round out your question, this film basically was. And we'll hear a little bit about this in this behind-the-scenes mini-doc that we had. I knew it was time to do another film. I had done a 48-hour film a few years prior. I'd been making video for about 10 years, and I wanted to start making my own films. And this script kind of started as the genesis of it was it started with the location. I knew that location, Missouri Town, 1855, existed in Lee Summit because I went on a field trip there when I was like in fourth grade. And so in my head, I was just problem solving. And I was like, well, I've got a location. I should write a script. And then I just started diving into the research of what could I tell in this period. And it started as a Western, and then it kind of just evolved into a drama. But the overall story was basically I wanted to write an origin story to a bandit, or in this case, 2 bandits, Emily and Elizabeth, or Elizabeth and Mary, who were these 2 bandits that this is how their story started. And as oftentimes tall tales do, there's a lot of circumstances and details that get left out and that get blown out of proportion. And so once I knew I had a location and I wanted to tell an origin story, I just started working on a script, and I worked on it with a few friends, most notably a good buddy of mine, Anthony Laddish, who's also a filmmaker here in KC. He and I kicked around the script idea for quite a while, and then we went into production. So there's a very long-winded answer to tell you I've always been a filmmaker, I think, and then this whole film exists because I knew that location was something that we could use to our advantage.
So that's a pretty common thing with independent filmmakers. You write for, it's not necessarily what you know, but what you have available. And in this instance, you saw this location. You're like, all right, I can make a movie around that location, and I know there's production design to it. So let's find the story for that location.
That was a lot of it. I had an idea for a Western kind of at the same time that I knew that we found this location. So it kind of happened at the same time. I knew I wanted to do, there's another element to it too that I really is small budget indie films and short films in particular, like by virtue of the fact that you don't make money on short films. Oftentimes you have to make small ideas happen. And I either stubbornly or just naively was like, I would like to do more than that. I want to make a period piece. Making a period film on almost no money felt like a challenge that I wanted to take on. So I kind of challenged myself to that. So it was kind of, yes, using the location to our advantage, which is definitely a scrappy independent filmmaker thing to do. But then also like kind of understanding, hey, this is going to be a real challenge to make a period piece on a film that I'm funding out of my own pocket. And so it's a little bit of the like athlete in me of like taking on a challenge that I knew would be tough and a little opportunistic, knowing that we had this location. And then also just I have a passion to tell these dramatic stories. I always tell people I wish I were a comedy writer, but everything I sit down and write ends up being super dramatic, but I enjoy comedies a lot more. But this came from the love of like Breaking Bad and Quentin Tarantino and Western films in general, and kind of mashing all that together. So yeah.
Well, I have a couple questions here, but I'm going to get one more as we're on the subject of making a period piece Western on no money as your first, standalone narrative film. That is insane. Let's just say that. Because
thank you. I appreciate that.
Like succeed or not, you swung for the fences with this one, and that was going to be my question here is why try something so difficult? You're balancing scope, you're balancing location, period specific acting and outfits. All of that is important to sell, because if you fail in any of those things, people are going to see right through the story and it's just not going to work. So what was it about, I guess, challenging yourself more so, or did it not even seem like a challenge? You're just like, I'm making this movie and those are all pieces to the puzzle.
It's a little bit of both. For me, I don't see that as a challenge necessarily, but it's because of how my brain works, how it's kind of baked in, my creativity is baked in. For instance, my girlfriend and I started a cooking show when the lockdown happened. Some of the people on this YouTube channel, most of the people on this YouTube channel will know it. But the whole thesis of the cooking show was anytime I do anything, I do it to the fullest measure possible, because that's just how my brain works. Yeah, I'm plugging my own YouTube channel on my YouTube channel. But so the reason we started it is because that's just how I am. For example, I have always been a musician. I play guitar most of my life. And currently right now I'm learning how to build guitars, because that's just baked into who I am. So I didn't see it as a challenge, but I also knew I took it on because it is challenging, because it was difficult to like find the location on no budget, the wardrobe on very little budget, the weaponry. We had to go rent very period specific weaponry for it. And at the root of all of it, I think the reason I wanted to do it was, when you make movies, like, you get to put on fun hats and play dress up and play make believe, and doing a period piece like that, I think while it's cost prohibitive, it helps you when you're a small independent production, when you get to be in this place where you don't really have to act as much, because you are there, you're actually there. And it's an advantage that we have here in Missouri, but you get to play pretend, which is what movies are. And I don't know, I really wanted to have that experience of stepping into a set of a little world that we created. And thanks to our art department and our wardrobe folks and hair and makeup and our wonderful talent, the 2 days we were there felt like, I don't know, it felt like we were really in 1855, minus, the cars that were around that we actually had to paint out of the background at 2 shots. But it actually also, I don't want to necessarily talk about the downfalls of it, but one of the things that I would have changed about the shoot entirely would be to add another day of shooting. But that's the needle that you're threading, is that you don't have a lot of money on these small productions. And I chose to make one that we only had 2 days to shoot. If I could do it again, I would have added a little bit more story at the beginning. But I think for this very small slice of story that we get, it made it feel really huge, because the whole story is written out in very complex and intricate, and the way that it looks and the way that it feels and the way it was executed because of Chris Commons, our director of photography, and our talented folks in front of the camera, and everyone that Austin assembled behind the camera through finishing and color correction and all that, have lent their talents to make this film I feel like it doesn't feel like a small short film. It feels like a very narrow slice of a much bigger story, which was kind of the hope when I started. So I just talked in a huge circle. So I'll let you figure out what to do with the rest of that.
Well, here's what I'm gonna do with it. I'm gonna go to some of the audience questions here. I have 4, so we'll go. Most of these are pretty quick answers, yes and no's for you. First one: do you have any plans to follow the story up, or is it just standalone, or are there going to be any adjacent stories or any other time period specific things? I actually know what they asked.
Yeah, I really would love to just make this again, because that's how I create everything. I make everything multiple times in an iterative fashion. But there is a feature length outline and part of a script written for it. So if I ever were able to get enough money and time and resources put together, I would love to make a feature length version of this film. But because of the way that this short film works, the mechanics of the storytelling would be very different. The whole point of this short film was that reveal at the end where you find out that Mary and Elizabeth are working together, whereas in the feature length, you would have to know that they're mostly together at some point. I don't know. There's a lot of ways to work it out. So the shortest way to say that is, yes, this could be a feature length film. I would love it to be. If anybody in the chat has money they want to give me, I will certainly take it and make it into a feature length film.
Next question here is about the casting process for this. So what was it like casting for a short film? I guess we didn't mention that you are a commercial industrial director. You do you're directing all the time, but you're not directing narrative stuff. So how different was that process for the short film? And for Megan, I guess, who's here, what was it like for her?
I've been talking a lot. I want Megan to, you tell the story of how you met me and how this started.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I'm lucky enough. I've known Chris Bilsma, who plays William, for I would say about 10 years now. Him and I go way back. And shortly after, actually the day before I got married, Chris wrote me and said, do you want to audition for this cool Western that Michael Martin's doing? And I hadn't met Michael Martin yet. But I'd seen some of his work on his website and I loved it. So it was so cool because then I got the sides. I love period clothing and I've always wanted to be in a period piece. So I have a plethora of that. And so I auditioned and then, thank goodness Michael reached out and said that he wanted me to be a part of it. I was so excited. And yeah, I'm just so grateful to him, to Austin, to Chris for having me be part of it. It's literally a dream come true to be part of a period piece, especially with 2 strong female women. It's just a dream come true.
That when your character in this is concealing not 1 but 2 different twists. So how was it for you to basically play undercover? It
was really fun, and Michael, it was so great to receive his direction, to help me conceal my true agenda, to keep it subtly in the eyes. And I actually I have this. I always do this, where I write different pictures and create a backstory kind of, and then lead up to Michael
I didn't know you made that. That's incredible to see. I would love to see pictures of that.
Oh, I'll send it over to you. I'll scan it over to you.
Please do, yeah.
Michael, you were gonna say something before I interrupted you.
Oh, I was just gonna say that Megan just became that character, and it was a lot of fun to direct. And then I also think we went through a lot of extra work to get Chris and Megan to be part of the film, because Chris lives between. He played the Man in Black, William. He lives between New Mexico and L.A., and Megan also lives in L.A. And typically on these short films, it's contradictory for me to say, oh, I knew that I had a location here that I could use to my advantage, which is scrappy. But then also, I'm going to work with some actors that we brought in from outside of Kansas City. Those are 2 conflicting approaches to making the same film. But you mentioned that I work in commercial work a lot, and I think most of commercial directing, a good lion's share part of it, because as a director, you're not the one coming up with the concepts, the ad agencies are, but the biggest influence that you have is casting sometimes. And I knew casting makes and breaks work, period. And not that there weren't great people here in town. Yetunde, who played Elizabeth, is from in town here. But it was just like, I wanted to make sure that I went as far as I could to find the right people, because oftentimes in short films, you just use whatever, not only cast, but locations and props and wardrobe, you use whatever you can. But if it's part of that makeup and that DNA I was saying about doing things purposely because they're challenging, is having to go that extra step oftentimes makes my work better. So it behooves me to say, yeah, let's find someone who we can bring out from LA to come be in this film. But yeah.
Did you specifically seek Megan and Chris out, and did you have them audition at all, or I mean, they obviously have a lot of work that you can see, but did you go through an audition process, or was it more like this role is for them, and then when it came to the other roles, did you audition them, or was that a lengthy process for you?
Everybody but Chris Bilsma, William's character, who played William, auditioned. Bilsma and I got to know each other, and it felt right. So I was like, yeah, great. He had the right look. He has been in Westerns before, so he brought a little bit of like know-how to that and gave it some credit. And then Chris actually helped me find Megan, because I think they're either were or currently are working with the same agency. And then Yetunde I found through Anthony Laddish, who I mentioned earlier. He had worked with her on a short of his and connected me, and she auditioned. And Mark Smeltzer, who played Benjamin, actually was also in a movie with Anthony Laddish, but Mark is a musician here in town. So there's 2 locals and 2 from the coast. And Mark auditioned, but he didn't really have to, because he just kind of was that character. He fit right. And so we went through an audition process, except for Bilsma, who I didn't necessarily write these roles for anyone in particular, but it just worked with him. So I didn't question it.
All right, next question. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, Yetunde also was doing, which I was so impressed with her. She was doing this, and then she'd go right to a play she was doing. So she's just so impressive.
Yeah, we actually had to schedule, Austin had to schedule our shoot days around Yetunde making it back to the Playhouse in time. It was incredible. So.
The next question, and one you'll probably get asked the most, is what's in the envelope? This is a great one. And then actually, I'd like to answer this question, and then we should play the behind the scenes documentary while it looks like there's 30 people in here. So I'd love to play that for folks. We've got a little short behind the scenes, and then we'll come back and finish up with more questions. What's in the envelope? I would love for the folks in the chat to tell me what they think is in the envelope, because the envelope is a very traditionally it's a MacGuffin. I mean, if anybody here is a fan of films, I'm sure you'll have heard the term. And if you haven't, a MacGuffin is just an item or a thing that starts the chain of events that leads to a plot of a film. Oftentimes, the MacGuffin has little to no consequence in the film. It's written that way specifically because the feature-length film is actually all about that letter. So if you think of this film as like just the last 6 minutes of a film or whatever, you would know all of the history of that letter that comes up to this. But because I wanted to make this film, I just needed it to start the plot. That's the setup. There's a lot of things that could be in the envelope, and it's an interesting thing. It works a lot like abstract painting does, where when you stand in front of an abstract painting, you can see whatever you'd like to see in it. So a lot of people see a lot of different things. The way that it's written in the feature-length script is that it's a deed to a piece of land that Elizabeth's character, played by Yetunde, her family owns that piece of land, and Benjamin has acquired this deed to this land. He's through no malice or malcontent, but he has this deed, and Elizabeth and Mary would like to get it back. They're trying to get it back from him in a way that leads to no death and people being shot, but things go awry. But the deed is Elizabeth's. It's her family's. Some people have said that they feel like it could be paperwork that frees Elizabeth as a slave, which actually, given the period, being an African American at this point in this particular state at that time, that makes sense. But I took
I wanted to not go with the first thought, and I thought it would be cool for it to be a piece of land that someone owned, that the girls were trying to get back, and William, who in the feature length, William actually doesn't even know what it is, and so he starts to make up what he thinks it might be. He thinks has a lot more monetary value, whereas the land is just sentimental value mostly because it's not a very big piece of land. But the short answer is a deed, and that's what they were trying to get the entire time. So if I ever make this into a feature length film, you all will have known what it was the whole time, and maybe in the feature length film that will be a big reveal. So maybe you got a spoiler 10 years in advance.
10 years in advance, he says. All right, do you want to drop the BTS here?
Yeah, let's take a look. A quick. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Nope, I was going to say, you just set it up so they know what they're getting into.
Sure, yeah. A friend and colleague and peer of mine, Nathan Minnell, joined us on set for both of these two. It was the 2-day shoot. I didn't give him a ton of like direction. I was just like, Nathan, I would really love to find out what it's like to be on set through your perspective. So he filmed this with us for the 2 days we were there. It's just a little featurette, but it's a little thank you to the 30 people that I see in the chat. You guys will see this before anybody else does, but this is a little behind the scenes made by Nathan Minnell. Everybody speeding. And action! Welcome to day one of photography on pheasants. I am the director, Michael Martin. We are on location at Missouri Town 1855. Anybody making a super low budget indie short film has no business making a period piece, except for when you have a location that building is from the 1850s. I came here when I was a kid to do a school field trip. When I sat down to write the script, I was like, how do I use what I have at my disposal to my advantage, which in Missouri is having cool stuff like this. And I was like, cool, I have, essentially $100,000 set to play with that, is a location that not everyone has a privilege to have. So I wrote a Western, and here we are. It's a little bit of organized chaos. The first few minutes of the day are always a little nutty, but it'll be running like a well-oiled machine here pretty soon.
Take one marker.
Action! Cut! Back to one. That was great, guys.
Camera cuts.
Alpha, take one marker.
Whatever comes out, comes out. And then when you get to the floor,
2-8, 2-3 split.
you grab this, she tips you off, and then you turn her around. Yep. I don't know why Megan's up, but a big hand to Megan and the rest of the cast.
I'm clapping for you. I was just finishing watching it myself. Great job. That was a great little BTS.
The main thing that I want to take away from that is, and Emily Moore, who was the art director, is in the chat, and I could see that she mentioned this, but we shot this on December 10th or something last December, before COVID, obviously. And the first day we were watching the weather, and we felt really like we lucked out because I think it was 40 degrees or something by 8 a.m. And then the second day it dropped 30 to 40 degrees. It was legitimately 10 degrees outside. So everyone acting, everyone in the crew, were all freezing. It was very, very cold, and everyone did such a good job. No one complained. I mean, everyone was cold, but I didn't hear either that or Austin did a good job of protecting me from hearing people whine about how cold it was. But everybody really, like, I can't say thank you enough to the crew. Every one of those folks did such a great job. And the cast who, you know, the setting for this film was not the dead of winter, so they're not wearing like winter clothing. They're wearing just normal end of fall clothing. It was cold. It was very cold. And Emily, who worked on the film as our art director, and Nancy Robinson, who worked as our wardrobe person, and Heidi Bowles was our hair and makeup. As soon as we would cut, they would all come in and just like throw a coat on everyone who was cold. So thank you to the crew for braving what was thankfully only one cold day out of the two. But the other thing with that behind the scenes documentary, and someone mentioned it, I think a couple of days ago when I showed it to him, is that it takes a lot of people to make a very short, simple story happen. And honestly, these premieres, the two that I've done, in my head, I'm the one that gets to sit here and do all the talking, but honestly, it's to celebrate the crew and the cast that makes. Essentially, I sit at a computer and write 15 pages of whatever I came up with, and these folks all make that happen. And when you're in the industry at the scale that we're at, they're not making much money doing it. They just do it because they either love filmmaking or they like, you know, working with their friends. And it's a very passionate thing to make films this way. And I appreciate, if there's any of the crew in the chat or any crew watching this after we've posted it, sincerely, thank you. Thank you very much for the time that you gave to this film.
Yeah, no one gets rich making short films, and it is a lot of pennies or no payments and doing favors for people. So got a question in the chat here. Assuming the feature length script came before this, how did you come about this particular sequence or this scene for the short?
It's a great question. So it did, the bigger idea came before this, and honestly, I keep saying there was one thing that made me want to make this short. And as I'm speaking about it, I'm becoming aware that it was many things. It was the location. It was that I wanted to do something difficult. I wanted to do something as a period piece. And then ultimately, I was super inspired by the opening scene of Inglourious Bastards, which is just a one location, 2-character dialogue scene, which is the most intense thing that I've maybe ever seen. And I thought, it'd be really cool to show just this moment of intensity. I don't think I nailed it the way that I know that. I'm happy with the film. I don't want to make it sound like I'm speaking negatively. We did a really good job. But I wanted to make an intense moment happen. And then it morphed into, okay, if I can make this moment intense, could I also throw in a twist in a short amount of time? And then it hadn't been planned this way, but once we got to the edit, we actually we decided that it would be entertaining to do 2 twists, which technically there are 2. You find out that Mary is working with William, and then at the end, spoiler alert, I'm sure you guys have all seen it, but you find out that actually Mary is working with Elizabeth. So in the span of 8 minutes, we get tension, we get a gunfight, we get 2 gunshots, which, you know, that's a lot in 8 minutes. And we get two twists. I don't know if I said that or not. And you get 2 deaths, and Chris Bilsma did a pretty good job. That last shot of his, he's a great actor. Everyone in the film was great, but it's a lot packed into 8 minutes. That's the long answer. The short answer is I really just wanted to make a really intense little slice of this bigger story and see if I can make it entertaining and hold people's attention for that amount of time.
Next question we got here. How was the scene where we see the gunshot from outside the house done? I guess if you want to elaborate just how, in general, how some of the gunplay worked out here and some of the action sequences on the low budget.
Yeah. So the gunshot there's 2 gunshots. There's only one that we ever see, and we don't actually see it. Some of that was safety reasons. We had an armorer on set to make sure that everyone was safe, and we actually, Megan and Chris and Yetunde and I went to a firing range so the armorer could teach us gun safety, which I'm not a gun owner. I have utmost respect for guns, and I purposely, when I wrote it, I always feel like it's kind of a trope in short films that there's always like a gunshot. Everything's always leads to this gunshot. So I challenged myself to like, I don't ever want to see a gunshot happen for a lot of reasons, and some even ethical. The logistics of that shot were due to Chris Commons, the DP, and Michael Lopez, who was the gaffer. They were literally just crouched inside of the cabin and had a little light that they triggered, and it would flash. And then most of it's in the sound design, which was done by John Borland, who gave a really great character to that gunshot. And then the second gunshot, you don't see anything. It's just in sound design. And then there's a little bit of blood on William's mouth and then Mary's apron, which I don't know where that apron ended up. Hopefully we got that cleaned for Nancy, but but yeah, that was all the effects that had to do with that. And then the props themselves we rented from Austin. What was the name of that place?
I don't remember. Get Guns, Have Guns, or something weird like that.
Oh, is it Have Guns Will Rent?
Have Guns,
Have Guns Will Rent. That's the place.
Have Guns Will Rent. Yeah, we went out to Have Guns Will Rent, and we looked around, and we told them we actually weren't looking for a specific gun. We said the piece is set in 1867. Here's the people who will be holding the guns, and he was like, "Here you go. Here's a couple options," and he found them for us. They are. I don't think they're vintage guns, but they're periods. Like, actually, no, they may be vintage guns. Those may have actually been from the 1860s. I can't remember for sure or not.
Oh, they definitely were. They definitely had like the exact time period for that.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. And then, funny enough, if you really are paying attention, especially when Mary has the gun she's pointing at William, you can see in the end there's a little bit of beeswax that is period accurate. You would use that to seal in, which I had no idea. I learned from the Have Guns Will Rent guy. But there's been a couple of people that have pointed out, they're like, oh, that you could tell that it's a fake gun because you have those safety things in there, to which I've been able to like explain to them, no, that's actually how guns of the period would work, which I didn't understand. So there's a lot of really period accurate stuff for a film that is as low budget as ours is, including the structures. And I showed a little bit in the behind the scenes documentary. I highly, highly encourage all of you to go out to Missouri Town 1855. I get this total plug for them. It's an educational facility that they have period actors and information for. It's mostly like schools that go on field trips, but family. And I actually don't know if they're open during coronavirus and all that. So check into that. I meant to check into it beforehand. But the buildings are not replicas. They are actual buildings from 1855 or near that time period. So we are shooting in this small little cabin, and it made production a little bit more difficult, but I think it made it better. Our art director, again, Emily, was not allowed to touch most of the stuff in the cabin because it's actually vintage. It's from 170 years ago. And it's the cabin itself, the logs, everything that it's made out of was relocated from, I don't remember where, but it's a whole village of buildings like this. And it's a pretty neat little view into life. And again, back to what I said earlier, there's something really special about being on a low budget indie film, but then being able to step foot on set and feel like you're there. It takes a lot of the hard work out of like forcing a film to be convincing when you don't have to do much convincing. You are already in the setting. I don't remember what the beginning of that question. I think it was about the guns, but yeah, that's how we did the guns and the location.
And they have the Christmas special. Remember before, like you can go there and they show you what the Christmas was like back in the day.
Oh yeah, there was a Christmas program like the day after we wrapped where you could go and experience a Christmas from the 1800s. As I'm saying it, I hear that it can sound a little like lame and cheesy, but it is not. It's super intriguing, and it was a lovely time. And just Jackson County Parks and Rec and Missouri Town 1855 were such great hosts and partners to work with on the film. So a big thank you to them as well.
All right, we got one more question from the audience, and then I'll give you guys each one more question. We can start wrapping it up. Their question was, what was the biggest challenge on the project, and what was the most rewarding moment? I think this can be asked for everybody here, because you each have a different role in the film. So what was the biggest challenge for you in making this project, Michael, Austin, and Megan? And then what was your most rewarding moments?
Austin, why don't you start? You haven't had a chance to speak too much.
I think the biggest challenge for us, since this was all our first period piece, I don't think that we really we didn't expect the wardrobe and makeup to take as long as we did, and it was a huge learning experience. And our wardrobe person, Nancy Robinson, and our makeup artist, Heidi Bowles, did an amazing job. But like right out of the gate, we just kind of we underestimated the amount of time that it takes to get our talent perfect. And then you're playing catch up the rest of the day. But I mean, we had such a good cast and crew, we were able to overcome it pretty good. And I think starting the way that, I guess that kind of leads to the most rewarding moment, because when you start like that and you start so far behind, it really gets people, you start stressing out because you only have 2 days to get all these shots. But everybody crushed it the rest of the day, and we made our day on time, and we got everything we needed to do on our first day. So I think that was pretty rewarding.
To add to the scarcity of time that we had, also we're shooting outdoors and with a lot of natural daylight in December. The literal shortest day of the year was 6 days, I think, after we filmed. So we had almost no daylight. And so when Austin says, we started the day behind because of, and it was not our makeup and hair people, it was us making a miss guess. It wasn't even an estimation. We just guessed and we were wrong. And then on top of that, we're putting pressure on the rest of the crew to say, hey, we're like an hour and a half behind, and the schedule on the sun cannot be pushed. It goes down at 4:30 and we are done. So the timing, and I'll own a lot of that too, because this was probably a 3 or 4 day shoot, and we literally shot this thing in two December days outside, which is really only 6.5 hours of daylight, which is nothing. But anyway, Megan, I'm interested to hear both of these answers from you too.
Okay. I would say the most challenging thing was sleeping, because I was so excited to film. That was the most challenging. I was so excited I couldn't sleep. And then the most rewarding things were meeting new people and working with Chris again, and I've always wanted to play a character like this and to work under Michael's direction. And also I love going into the gun range too. It was just a dream come true, meeting everybody, and all the pieces came together in those 2 days. It was really remarkable. And all the camaraderie, so many rewarding things.
Megan has since worked on other period work since then as well. Can you, I selfishly would love to know, I think you'd already done some period stuff before. Oh, there's our dog. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you'd done some period work before this film.
But a tad bit, but not to this extent. Just
a
little bit.
Did our film, the best that I could hope for is that our film helped inform the next one that you did? Because there's something, and please plug it, because I think it's on Amazon, correct? Please tell us about it.
Yeah. So the next thing, I can't say the name yet, but it's.
Oh shoot! I'm sorry. We can edit that out if I should not have said that.
That it's a show that'll be out on Amazon later next year.
Perfect.
And this period piece did help me in so many ways. To piggyback to that, so I'm very grateful.
Can you tell me a little bit about when you were on this set? And I selfishly am very curious of our tiny little homespun production versus you being on this big set with money and lots of people and lots of crew. Did it feel similar? And then also how did our little indie period production help? I would love to hear some of that experience.
Yeah, I love each for different reasons, but I do on the set with you guys, it was just so nice because there's such a camaraderie and a personalization. You get to know everybody so closely, and a lot of times and I love it too, in our trailers and stuff. And it was COVID during this other shoot, but
right.
The fact that we all got to hang out in KC, go get barbecue together, rehearse. It was just, I think there's such a charm and such heart to indie filmmaking, because you get that time together that you necessarily wouldn't get on bigger productions. And I really, really, truly love that.
I've kind of always said, like, jokingly, because who knows what my career will be, but I've always said that if I ever were to make it into big time, big budget stuff, I feel like I would always look back on this time in my filmmaking career and miss it, because there's so little rules. There's so, you are literally just like, I mean, you saw in that movie, that little BTS documentary, like, we needed to move a jib, so I got on the jib and helped the guys move it. Like, I'm not going to be able to do that if I'm ever on a set where there's lots more money at stake. And I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad that you got some time in the chair as a period character before you went on to a bigger thing. And I'm so excited to see. Hopefully, we were allowed to say it's on Amazon. I'm excited to see it when it comes out.
Oh, thanks for, I'm just forever grateful to be a part of this. So
yeah. What else you got for us, Adam?
Well, I have one or two more. So there's one more in the audience questions that you didn't answer. The title Pheasants, where did you come up with it, and what does it mean in relationship to the film?
That's a great question. I actually wrote, so there were like 18 versions of the script, but the title was Pheasants very early on. It was actually The Pheasant at first, and then it became Pheasants because there's the two women. Basically, like I said earlier, I knew I wanted to write an origin story to a bandit, or in this case, it ended up being two bandits, and bandits need a name. So I knew I needed to name these bandits something catchy and fun and mysterious. And so I started doing research. At the same time I was researching, I did a lot of research into, like, what's it like to write a woman in the 1860s in the West, and how many women bandits were there, which there's not zero. There's not as many as there are men, but there are a lot, and more than just like Annie Oakley and a couple others that are really well known. I highly recommend just Google, like, women bandits 1800s. So as I was reading into that, I started to also simultaneously research the names, and one draft of the film, the way that I tipped the twist was that the bandit had a hat on that had a pheasant feather, or had a feather in there. And then I started researching, like, well, what feather would that be? And I came across, I can't remember the scientific name for it, but it's anytime in the animal kingdom that there's a male and a female of the species, and the female is actually the larger and more colorful version of the species. There's this term that I can't remember, but in pheasants, the larger and more colorful pheasant is the female pheasant, and most people think it's the male because it's, that's the assumption that people make. And then I put those two things together, and I thought, oh, that's perfect, because in a story like this, it would be very easy to assume that the guy in black, in the black hat with the bad attitude, is going to be the main character or a bandit. And it actually turns out that, in my eyes, Mary, who was the brains of the whole operation, and Elizabeth, who was her support, are the ones pulling all the strings. And so there's that, like, little subverting of cultural and societal norms a little bit. I know that's a lot to just talk about a particular bird in an 8-minute film, but if that gives you any insight into, something this short and small has to have layers. It's a quote from the book Story by Robert McKee, which everyone who writes screenplays knows. It's the same thing as saying, like, I can't remember the quote specifically, but it was someone in, like, revolutionary times who ended a 20-page letter by saying, I'm sorry that this letter was 20 pages. I'm sorry I didn't write a shorter one. I didn't have the time, which is, again, like, subverting your expectations of anytime you have a story this small, like, it has to be compact. It has, like, every single thing has to mean something or lead to something, because you only have a small amount of attention, and you can only keep people's attention for a little bit of time, because it's a tiny, tight little story. So everything down to what Yetunde was wearing on set, being, she was wearing dungarees, jeans, which I didn't realize this until Nancy helped educate me, but jeans have existed for much longer than I thought. But her wardrobe and her wearing non-typical gendered female clothes of the time, like, there's a reason behind almost everything. And that's where Pheasants came from.
All right, I'm going to wrap this up as I do with every short film segment on our Patreon with asking everybody here involved with in this crazy apocalypse of a year, how have you been able to keep yourself inspired to continue to create, whether it be writing, acting, producing, directing, what have you? How have you maintained through the apocalypse?
Austin, go for it, man.
Oh man. Yeah, I think for me personally, it's been a lot of conversations with filmmakers, trying to check in on everybody. Being a producer and assistant director like I have been for the last couple of years, I just try to reach out to as many people as I can and make sure they're doing all right. And I think that helps me to hear that everyone's doing all right. And then outside of that, I wrote like 3 short films, and I'm actually currently writing my first feature. I decided that on December 1st that I was going to write a feature in a month, which is essentially 3 pages a day, and I've hit that every single day this month.
Who are you, me, with these challenges? Jesus. Congratulations, man. That's awesome.
It's just, and I think Michael, that's kind of, I think, especially in Kansas City, as artists and filmmakers specifically, we put these giant challenges in front of ourselves because I think it just elevates our motivation to go do it. And it's just kind of a Kansas City thing. Like, tell us we can't do it and we'll prove you wrong. And that's kind of just like always been our mentality.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that as like a regional thing, but I think you're probably right, especially because not only do we feel that about ourselves a little bit, but oftentimes, especially being filmmakers in the Midwest, we are constantly being told that you can't. So why not swing for the fences?
Yeah, and I actually even worked in August, so like right at the end of summer when numbers were getting better, but then also they were starting to get worse again. I was production staff on a feature that we shot in Illinois because some producers that I worked with had that same mentality, like people in LA can't make a feature. Well, I bet people in Illinois can. So,
well, congratulations to you.
Midwest thing.
Yeah. Megan, what about you? How's it been in COVID times?
Yeah, it's been, first and foremost, just checking up on my friends and family, talking to them a lot, making sure everybody's healthy and okay and staying safe. And I've also been learning a bunch of new stuff. I'm learning a new language, Dutch. I've been practicing on the guitar and ukulele. What else have I done? I'm also signed up for archery and horseback riding lessons. And
Renaissance woman, I love it. This is great.
and then just gearing up. I have a film coming out next year called Nina of the Woods. That Charlie Griak directed, and we wrote a book.
What? I don't think I knew that. So for those of you out there who don't know Megan and Jay, I'll give you the introduction so you don't have to brag on yourself. But Megan is business partners, roommates, and married to Jay Prescott, who is one half of the Booth of Us. They say something. So they are. They're both voiceover talent, as well as obviously Megan is in front of the camera as well. I don't know, Jay, do you do anything in front of the camera? Can you hear me?
Tell me what you do today.
I do if it comes around. I moved out to LA to be in front of the camera, and then I got behind a microphone and stayed there because I love it so much.
The dulcet tones of your voice
I won a category in the Voice Arts Awards today, right before this screening, so which is pretty good for the best.
Congratulations! Holy cow!
Campaign. Yeah, I was the donkey on the CNN promo campaigns, and so me and Maurice LaMarche just won that today. So that's great news.
That's amazing.
It's all a good day.
Congratulations, man. Yeah. So the Booth of Us, which is the both of them, Megan and Jay, are voiceover talent together in LA. Another plug for you guys. Is it theboothofus.com? Is that the website?
Of course it is.
Yeah. If you ever have voice needs, I've worked. We're currently working on, and they're on 2 bids of mine that are out. So if you ever need voice talent, they're both very easy to work with and very talented voice actors.
You're the best. You're the best.
Absolutely. I trust me. I understand every ounce of side hustle. That's been my entire life.
You're doing great. You go the full measure. I love your
the full. Yeah. And I'm glad that you said that, because my answer to Adam's question is a couple of things. I tend to thrive in chaos a little bit. I was raised in a lot of emotional turmoil, so it's when things are difficult, sometimes I feel like I do my best work, for whatever that's worth. And when things get tough, I start being like overly productive to the point where I have to kind of calm myself down and say like, hey, you can't write 9 films in 2 weeks. You know, you gotta take a step back. So I've been learning how to build guitars, which is a hobby that I've always wanted. I've been cooking a lot. And this sounds weird. I don't know, Adam, I'd love to hear if you've heard other people say this, but I specifically have not been writing because I feel like we all have this pressure of, oh my God, look at all this free time that we have, all this downtime. You should be writing. And I don't know about anybody else out there, but when I have pressure to create anything, that I don't create anything great. Like I have to, it has to come from a different place for me. And so I have taken a step back. I've kind of also hoped that would be an investment in when things are a little bit better, that I'll have an outpouring of things happen. And then I've had a lot of life situations happen this year with some health with my partner, which brings me to my final point is that the way that I've been surviving quarantine is I would actually, can you come over here? Can you hear me? She's got her headphones on monitoring the stream, so she can't hear me. Hey.
Let's give her 30 seconds. She's good.
This is how I've made most of my way through quarantine is Alexandria, who is my partner. She has supported me in every endeavor that I could possibly. She's the type of person that when I say like, hey, I'm going to spend all of the money that we have in savings making a Western film in December and try to put it out and know that I will never make money on it. And she goes, cool, that's great. How can I help? Like that's the type of person that she is. So, and this is Zuzu, our dog. She helps a little bit too, but yeah. Shameless plug for my partner, Alexandria.
Yeah, the pressure that you mentioned is definitely a real thing. The amount of different hobbies I've come up with, and I just fall back on, hey, I wrote a feature in March, and that was good enough for me, and I can kick back and not worry about it. So,
Mazel, dude. That's I remember when you were writing that, and you were like, holy cow, I put a feature-length script together in a month, which Austin, you will also
Austin
have done soon. Yeah.
It's very gratifying, even if it's just burning, whatever, just burning it out of your head just to get something done and out and feel that you can do something and accomplish it. And you guys did a great accomplishment here. I mean, Pheasants is a terrific film. Are you trying to read all the comments? There's no more questions, I promise.
Yeah, sorry.
There's
it's mostly like friends and stuff. And so just to shout out Tanya and I think Gabby's watching. Thank you both for those are friends way back from my agency days. Daly, Landon, thank you for your guys' comments. To the Grossmans, thank you. Incredible Mulk, who also has a streaming channel, I think on Facebook. Check him out. But yeah, thank you to, I see a bunch of people. I'm sorry if I didn't mention, but thank you all for listening to us ramble. Thank you. Sorry, I derailed you, but I just wanted to say hey to my friends because that's what these are for.
Yeah. Well, you all did a tremendous job. This is a great film. And for everybody in the comments, if you liked it, I think Michael's going to have another link up, or it'll be up. The link you had previously is now live. So the premiere is no longer. You could share that with friends. You could share this Q&A as well, so they can tune in and listen to kind of how the film was created. Because short films like this, they're calling cards, and without sharing and supporting each other, it's kind of all for nothing. So please, if you liked it, give it a post, give it a repost, let your friends know, get the views up, because that's what this is for. Anything else, Michael?
I would say that we will have, I'm trying to check. I will upload the actual version of the film without all of the extemporaneous talking and stuff at the beginning, which you guys can repost. Look for links. I'll send them out. But thank you to all of you in the chat. And then I also want to say a very heartfelt thank you to Adam, who has been our host, and to Screenland, Armour. I am confident in saying that for all filmmakers in Kansas City, for you giving us a home with Screenland as our local independent theater, which those are few and far between these days. It's been a tough year, but thank you for your continued support. For any of you in the chat, I'm sure Adam will also give a plug, but I would love to give one personal, heartfelt one, that he does a Patreon where this man is hustling. Every time I call him, he's just recorded a podcast or working on interviews. He puts all of his content out on his Patreon for the theater. I think it's like $5 a month. And you can you can listen to him talk to other filmmakers. There's a whole backlog of short films. I don't know. I don't want to give away details that I'm not supposed to give away, but you probably have some pretty important interviews that you could tell us about, that I know you just completed one this week. Do you have any of those you can tease us with?
Yeah. So our Patreon, it's $5 a month. We do weekly trivia. We have film watch parties. We're starting the Stephen King The Stand show, so we'll do that as a weekly watch party for a couple weeks. And then I do a weekly podcast just about like what's going on in the movie theaters, like what I'm doing, what I'm watching. And then when it comes around to like our film fest time, I'll talk about like how I do that. But then I also have a new podcast called the Filmmaker Podcast, so Film Space Maker, where I interview different directors and creators of all sorts. And the first episode is live now. It's with Kevin Smith. And then this week, director Colin Trevorrow will be on. He did Safety Not Guaranteed and Jurassic World, and was supposed to make episode 9 of Star Wars. So we chat about his whole career and things like that. And that's on Patreon early, and then it's live in the world outside of that. But yeah, if you like going to the movies, first of all, we're open. You could still go to the movies. And we do everything we can to make it a safe experience. But outside of that, we have, movies you can rent online. And then this Patreon, we at least do one short film showcase a month. So things like this, you can watch last month's. I was doing 2 at a time, but then I was just about, my head was going to explode. So I stopped doing that. But yeah, I do at least one a month where I sit down with a filmmaker. We show their film, both local and international filmmakers. I've done people from all over the world. And you can get the whole backlog of all the content for just $5 a month.
If any of you haven't heard of or haven't been to, first of all, if you haven't been to Screenland Armour, please go. Adam has gone above and beyond to make sure that it's safe. And I will say some of the stuff that you guys have been able to put out content-wise is beyond impressive. I mean, the one that's live right now is Adam, my buddy who's hosting this right now, talking to me the same way that you just got done talking to Kevin Smith, which I feel humbled to even be on the other side of the microphone of a man that is interviewing Kevin Smith. But the quality of the content you were putting out is bar none. And again, thank you from the Kansas City film community for being a home for us filmmakers.
Well, thank you all. That's it. That's all for tonight, right? We got nothing else. We've patted each other on the backs. We patted you all on the backs. And we're all very thankful for everybody. And here's to the last week and a half of 2020 and on to hopefully a better year for everybody. But I appreciate everyone tuning in and spending this evening with us watching Michael's film Pheasants. Well, everybody here's film. You guys did a tremendous job, and you should be very proud of yourselves. And that's all I got. If you like this and you want to find more of everybody's work, quick plugs for everybody. Michael, where can they find you? Austin, where can they find you? And Megan, where can they find you all?
You guys can find me at twoseam.com, TWOSEAM. That's my small production company that has links to everything. You'll find all of my work there.
Go ahead, Megan.
You can find me at www.meganhensley.com and theboothwest.com and Nina of the Woods later on this year.
We'll put all these links in the description of this video, and this video will stay live. So you guys can check the description for links.
And I don't have a website. It is my biggest procrastination of 2020, but I hope to have one soon. If you want to get in touch with me, go to Wagoner Film on Instagram. So
I'll put a link to that as well.
So great.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely,
Awesome.
man.
Well, that's going to do it for this world premiere of Pheasants. Thank you all for joining us, and have a great night.
Thank you, Adam.